Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. We're going to have a great conversation. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We got plenty of things that we can talk about tonight. So, all right, let's do it.
Of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. A lot's happening in the world. There's a siren outside my door or somebody honking their horn. I don't know if you just heard that. I don't know if that was audible on here. Lots happening in the world. We got a lot to talk about tonight. I'm going to try my best to be helpful in what I say tonight. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Got plenty we can talk about tonight. The way this show works, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, is that I give my opening remarks. That's the first bit of the show. While I'm giving those opening remarks, I am writing down your super chat questions. So if there's something you want me to talk about, send me a super chat and I'll write it down. And then after that, I do the roll call where I call you all out as I see you, names and locations. We find out who it is, who's on the other side of the camera. And then after the roll call, we then answer super chat questions for the rest of the night. So if there's something you want me to talk about in the second half of the show, shoot me a super chat. I will write it down. And in the second half of the show, I'll answer it. And that's the way we do things here. So first, opening remarks. Second, roll call. Third part, super chats. Writing the super chats down as we go. So thanks, everybody. So I guess with no further ado, I'm going to jump into my opening remarks for tonight. I want to start out by urging everyone to just slow down a little bit. Just slow down a little bit. Take a deep breath. Breathe out. Take another deep breath. Breathe out. I'm giving you my opening remarks tonight at a time when there is an increasing amount of chaos in the world. As you all are probably aware, there was a bank failure that happened on Friday, and there have been a couple more bank failures that have taken place. People are worried about financial turmoil. But in addition to that, there is a war going on in Ukraine. U.S. leaders are escalating their hostility to China and Russia. The Korean Peninsula is on edge. There's a lot to be uneasy about. We don't necessarily know what's going to happen within the next 24 hours, within the next 48 hours, within the next 72 hours. We don't have the power of mystical divination. We don't have the ability to simply look into the future and get a clear vision of what is going to take place. However, one thing that we do have is a scientific understanding of the objective laws of history. That we do have. And it is with this scientific understanding that I have been preparing you all for the crisis. I have been preparing you all for the storm that is coming. And I have been doing my best, scrambling to try and get things together as we prepare for the storm ahead. That's what I've been trying to do. And I've been trying to be optimistic, and I am optimistic. And I've been trying to be cheerful and hopeful, and I have been cheerful and hopeful. And I've tried to focus on the good, and I've tried to not react and overreact to the negative. I've tried not to get dragged down in the mud by those who are already there. I've tried not to fall into the trap of thinking there's nothing I can do, nothing you can do. All we got to do is just sit back and wait for the big collapse, wait for it all to fall. That's all we can do. I've tried my hardest and done my best to make sure that our community has some nudging to not fall into that pessimistic nonsense. It's so widespread in our society at this time. I've done my best to try and give us all the oomph to keep on going. I've always hoped that people would tune in and listen to these broadcasts and come out of them wanting to do something, coming out of them with a new level of peace and optimism and the belief that we can actually move ahead. We can take history into our own hands. We can do something about the insanity that's unfolding before us all, right before our eyes. I have done my hardest, done my darndest to try and use these broadcasts for good, to try and do my best to just nudge people forward. Nudge people forward on the right path as we face dark times, as the dark clouds assemble and we start to hear the rumbling thunder. The rumbling thunder. We start to hear that rumbling thunder, and I'm calming the crowds explaining where to prepare, trying to point the way towards shelter, telling people not to panic, and reminding them that the storm will pass and the sun will come back and we will find a way out of the darkness. That's what I've been on these streams trying to do. And as I do that on these streams, there are some forces who just can't stand it. It irks them. It grinds their gears. It irritates them. How dare you spread light, Caleb? How dare you tell people there's hope? How dare you? How dare you interfere with my cherished, hopeless, dark pessimism? How dare you try to make me feel like there's some hope in this madness? How dare you? How dare you rip me out of the protection and lack of responsibility that I find in being dark, pessimistic, and hopeless? How dare you tell me there's something that I can do that will make a difference? I just want to be dark. I just want to sit in my dark living room and turn on the dark Netflix movie and watch the dark, pessimistic plot play out. Watch the girl kill herself. Watch the father weep and cry. I just want to sit in the darkness of my living room and watch this horror movie called reality continue to play out. And you, Caleb, are on there every night trying to tell me that there's something I can do about it. And you're on there trying to tell me that the plot of the movie is not preordained. You're on there telling me that I'm not just a passive observer, that I'm a character in the movie, and that there's something I can do. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Maybe it's Greta Thunberg. How dare you? How dare you? That's me. That's Caleb. And I keep doing it. And I keep annoying them. And I keep nudging away and poking and harassing the dark side of your mind and reminding you that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that something good is going to happen. That's me. That's me. Perhaps my mind has been infected with some kind of drug, and perhaps I'm just not capable of truly digesting how dire the circumstances are, or how nasty and hateful and cruel and ruthless people have been. That's me. And I just keep coming back on here with a smile on my face, telling all of you how much I love you, telling all of you how much I wish you the best, telling you all how much I want the pain and the suffering and the hopelessness and the bitterness that is flowing through your bodies to vanish, and how much I want you to be empowered, how much I want you to wake up every morning with the belief that there is a future, there is light at the end of the tunnel, there is a rainbow with a pot of gold at the end of it. That's just who I am. That's just what I do. That is just what I do. And it's my ability to do that that has kept me here. It's kept me here. It is March 13th, 2023. 3. And I'm on here talking to all of you as banks fail, as the danger of a new world war hangs over our horizon, as the danger of an all-out police state hangs over us. I'm sitting here talking to all of you. I'm on here talking to all of you. And I'm explaining to you all that there's going to be a great conference coming up. We're going to have Scott Ritter. We're going to have Garland Nixon. We're going to have Nick Brana. We're going to have Jyoti Brar from the United Kingdom. Going to have a lot of other great guests. I'm on here, and I'm on here just reminding all of you that amid the thunder and the lightning and the storm clouds, we're doing something good here. We're doing something good here. We're offering a good message. And that as much as rival forces may be able to out-whiz-bang us, make sexier videos, make flashier videos, get more of a boost from the establishment, that it's like the tortoise and the hare. Because slow and steady wins the race. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And we just keep chugging along and chugging along and chugging along and chugging along. And learning from our mistakes and learning from our mistakes and learning from our mistakes. And casting off bad people and finding better people and finding good people and getting people to do their best and to work their hardest. And we just keep chugging along and chugging along and chugging along and chugging along. And we're not speeding and we're not taking shortcuts. We're not dashing forward. We're just chugging along, and we have a win here, and we have a setback here, and we have a win here, and we have a setback here, and we build a relationship here, and we improve our friendship here, and we keep chugging along, and we keep chugging along, we keep chugging along, but we know the storm is coming. We know the storm is coming. I've been warning you all that the storm is coming. And so we keep chugging along and chugging along and chugging along as we wait with the knowledge that the storm is indeed coming. We're here and we're solidly intact. And they have shot us with every bullet they can imagine. They have pointed their handgun at us and they've gone kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. And we're still not dead. And so they've walked over our body and they've pointed the gun again. Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. And we're still not dead. They crouch down and they point the gun at our head and they go kaboom, 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 and we're still not dead. And they have pumped us full of so many. They have shot us with every possible bullet that they have. We're still here. I'm still on here smiling. I'm still on here saying hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Still on here saying we need a government of action to fight for working families. I'm still on here saying out of the movement to the masses, out of the movement to the masses. I'm still on here explaining that the problem with capitalism is not that it creates endless growth, but precisely that it is incapable of allowing endless growth. That under capitalism, abundance creates poverty. That under capitalism, self-driving cars would be a nightmare when it should be nothing but a great technological leap forward. I'm on here explaining the coal miner's riddle. I'm on here explaining the problem of overproduction and the tendency of the rate of profits to fall. I'm on here explaining why it is that Russia and China keep rising while the West continues to spiral and deteriorate into greater chaos. I'm explaining all of this. I'm explaining all of it. And people are listening to it. And the message resonates because it's true. And I didn't invent it. I didn't discover this stuff. This stuff is old. This is old stuff. Marx didn't even discover this. This stuff goes back to Saint-Simon, Henry Saint-Simon. This stuff goes back to Robert Owen. the problem of poverty created by abundance, poverty amidst plenty, the problem of jobs being displaced by technology, the problem of eliminating human labor from the assembly line when it is only human labor that creates value. The capitalist can't exploit a machine, he can only exploit human labor. I'm on here explaining these age-old problems with capitalism. Only human labor creates value. Machines don't create value. Human labor creates all wealth. That's what I'm on here talking about. And when we have a society where profits are in command, the more technology advances, the poorer people get. And when you have a great leap in technology, you have a prolonged crisis of overproduction. This is all the stuff I talk about. It's all the stuff I talk about. I wrote a whole book because there are so many concepts we've dug so deeply into in the live streams into. I decided I had to write this book. Where is America going? Marxism, MAGA, and the Coming Revolution. Chapter 1 is all about the economic crisis. It's all about overproduction. It's all about the tendency of the falling rate of profits. It's all about finance capital, the rule of the world by big banks. Chapter 2, I talk about Bonapartism and how when you have an economic crisis, it leads to a political crisis because the capitalists begin to fight and squabble among themselves and battle among each other. They all want the government to stabilize the economy, but they all want to do it at the expense of the other capitalists. It's a struggle to seize control of the state, utilize the state to stabilize the economy. And now there's one particular faction in the United States, the Anglo-American establishment, the Eastern establishment, the old money entrenched oligarchy, the richest of the rich, the ultra-rich in the United States, who more or less believe in Malthusianism and believe that the way to resolve this capitalist crisis is to forcibly degrow and grind the world into poverty, reduce the population, reduce consumption, reduce living standards. That the big oil monopolists and the Silicon Valley fascists, they have determined that the way to stabilize the crisis is grinding the world into poverty so that they can stay at the top, making the world poorer and poorer and poorer to make sure that they stay at the top. This is the division within the ruling class between the ultra-rich and their scheme for having a controlled demolition of the human race, of reducing living standards, grinding the world deeper into poverty, and the rest of humanity. The lower level capitalists, they don't want to have their profits reduced. They don't want to be put out of business. The working class wants higher wages and a better living condition and a better life for their children than they had. The people of the world want to rise up from poverty. Africa wants to lift itself up with electrification, with running water, with education. Asia, Africa, Latin America, they all want this. The socialist countries of the world are the ones leading this. It's China, the Belt and Road Initiative, that is leading these kinds of efforts. It's the Bolivarian countries of Latin America. They're the ones doing it. And that now, this division in the world between the degrowth faction, the monopolists that want degrowth, that want to grind the world into poverty to save the capitalist system, and the rest of humanity that wants to continue marching forward and lifting its head up and raising out of poverty and growing and advancing technology and inventing things. This division is what we are seeing. And that things don't make any sense right now. Because the left, if you want to call it that, has deteriorated into a group of people that are merely the foot soldiers of the degrowth faction. Their job is to help Rockefeller and DuPont and Carnegie and Bill Gates and Carlos Slim and Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos kick around the lower level capitalists who won't go along with their degrowth scheme to save the capitalist system. That's what their plan is. And to be a leftist now means that you are a foot soldier of Silicon Valley. You're a foot soldier of the Walton family of Walmart and foot soldier of the Kroc family that owns McDonald's, a foot soldier of the ultra monopolies to keep society in line with their overall plan of stabilization to save the economy. And that increasingly, in the Western capitalist countries, there has been a layer of people that, for whatever reason, don't want to go along with this. And they're confused, and they don't understand why. Some of them have illiberal ideas. They're Christians or Muslims or Jews. They have orthodox ideas. They have practices that don't line up with what the liberal order wants. And some of them are just working class people who want to live their lives and want a better life for their kids, and they haven't bought into the idea that humans are a cancer on Mother Earth. And some of them are part of the lower levels of capital. They're small business owners. They're members of even the capitalist class that are not part of the club. And there's increasingly a growing number of people that have questions about vaccines, that have questions about all kinds of things. They have questions about all kinds of things. They have questions about climate change. They've got questions about vaccines. They've got questions about the wars and why we're supposed to hate Russia and why we're supposed to hate China. They've got questions about the censorship on social media and why they shouldn't be able to say what they want to say. They got questions. Some of them are white. Some of them are black. Some of them are Latino. Some of them are Asian. Some of them are Arab Americans. Different views, different ideologies, but they just don't go along with the new party line. And those people are growing in number every day. And there are various attempts to corral these people, to corral them back into compromising and working with the liberal order. But none of these schemes really work that well. And there's various attempts to try and channel them one way or channel them another way. But they don't really seem to work. Because what's driving these dissident sentiments on the part of the population is not Russian disinformation. It's not right-wing propaganda. What's driving these dissident sentiments, these conspiracy theories, is economic reality. It's the fact that people are seeing. They're seeing with their own eyes. And the country is falling apart. Everything is broken. The trains are derailing. The water isn't getting purified and clean. The schools are a joke. Everything is falling apart. Everything is falling apart in the country. That is what is driving people to dissent. That's what's driving people to look for answers. That's what's driving it. You're not going to make it go away by outlawing conspiracy theories, outlawing questioning of the status quo, banning people from Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and whatever. You're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to outlaw people questioning things because people are questioning things. Thank you, darling. People are questioning things. People are questioning things because of the fact that things are not getting better in the country. Things are not improving in the country. Things are not getting better in the United States. The situation is getting worse and worse and worse. And that is driving people to ask more and more questions about why. That is driving people to say something must be done. That is forcing people who would normally have peace, people who would prefer to go along to get along, people who would prefer to just live their lives, follow the rules, not make anybody mad, not get in trouble. It's forcing people to ask questions. It's forcing people to not be at peace with the system. It's forcing people to increasingly say they don't like the way things are going and they want answers and they want to know what to do about it. And it is in this moment of confusion that we, Center for Political Innovation, CPI, City Building Tendency, that we're doing our work. And as I said, we're just chugging ahead. We're just chugging along. We're making mistakes. We're getting better at what we do. We're getting stuff done. We're building a community. We're building connections here. We're establishing this center here and meeting people here and engaging here and publishing a book here and having a conference here and making an online documentary here. And we're just trying one bit at a time to chug along amid all of this turmoil, amid all of this instability, knowing that this instability will get worse, knowing that there is a storm on the horizon, knowing that we're heading towards a crisis. We're chugging along. We're chugging along. We're chugging along, and we're just doing the best we can. And the reason that we're able to keep chugging along, and the reason that I can come on here night after night with a smile on my face, is because socialism is my horizon. If you're on a boat and you're feeling seasick, the reason that you're feeling seasick is because everything around you is moving. Everything around you is moving. And if you're feeling seasick, the advice they give you when you get on a boat and you're feeling seasick because everything around you is moving is to look to the horizon. Because the horizon is the one thing that's not moving. It's still. It's still. The horizon remains still. Socialism is my horizon. The understanding that human beings possess a certain level of creative power that is constantly driving them to advance. We've gone from hunter-gatherer civilization to slavery to feudalism to capitalism. And eventually we will reach socialism, and socialism will eventually give way to communism. It is my understanding that human beings are tool makers, the only species that has the ability to force the environment to serve them and has been constantly perfecting the methods of making the environment serve them. It's gone from hunting and gathering to growing crops and developing fuel sources and the Bronze Age and electricity and burning fossil fuels and nuclear power. And this is humanity. Humanity is capable of doing things no other species is capable of doing. Ants have been making their ant farms the same way for millions of years. And I love beavers. They're very cute. They got their teeth. They're adorable little critters, those beavers. But they've been making their beaver dams the same way for millions of years. But we human beings are constantly reinventing ourselves, reinventing the way we interact with our environment, reinventing the experience of what it means to be a human being, expanding our life expectancy, expanding our population, growing. There's a creative power in human beings that is something that other creatures just don't have. Other species do not have what human beings have. We have the ability to constantly reinvent ourselves, to constantly reach a higher plane. And for the past 5,000 years, we haven't stopped. We've just continued this amazing experiment called humanity. However, we have flaws. We're not perfect. I'm going to tell you all a story. Now, it's a story I think many of you have probably heard before. But it's a story that you haven't heard this way. Haven't heard it this way. And I'm going to tell this story, and you know how it ends. You know how it ends. You know the story probably very well. If you're a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, you probably know this story very well, but you haven't heard it the way I'm about to tell it. I'm going to tell it this way. Once upon a time, in a galaxy pretty close by, God decided to create human beings. God had already made the heavens and the earth. God had already made the fishes of the sea and the animals of the land. But God decided, I'm gonna do something different here with human beings. I'm gonna make a creature that is unlike any creature I've ever made before. I am going to create a creature that is in my own image. In my own image. Now, what does that mean? It means I'm going to create a creature that, just like I do, has a spark of creative power. It won't be like a beaver. It won't be like an ant. I'm going to make a creature that has creative power, that has the ability to force the environment to serve it, to constantly be reinventing the way it interacts with nature. I am going to create a creature with this godlike ability to create, with a brain, with a soul. I'm going to create a special kind of creature. But this power that human beings have is very dangerous. So I'm going to guide them very carefully and how they can use it. And I'm going to very carefully tell them that as they mature, I'm going to guide them in learning how to harness their creative power. I'm going to guide them They're not going to be allowed to just start creating on their own. I'm not going to hand a gun to a baby. You know, I'm not going to do that. Right? I'm going to gradually work them up to the point that they'll be able to use their creative power for good. For good. I'm going to work them up to the point that they know what creativity is about, they know what creative power is about, and that they'll use it explicitly for good. And I'm going to warn them. I'm going to warn them not to stray from the path that I've chosen for them. Don't just go create things on your own. Don't just go discovering things on your own. We have to walk this road together. God said to man, we have to walk this road together. When you're ready, I will reveal certain things to you. When you have matured and gotten to the point that you understand it, I will give you certain powers. But you have to walk this road together. We have to walk this road together. You and me, we have to walk on this road together. And there are certain things you're not ready for. And there are certain fruits that it is not time for you to bite into. And the time will come for you to bite into those fruits, but we're not there yet. There will come a time for you to overturn certain leaves. There will come a time for you to know certain things, but you're not there yet. And I'm going to raise you up. I'm going to raise you up to use this creative power, this spark of creativity, this ability to exist in the image of God. I'm going to raise you up so that you use it in a pure way, untainted by the animalism that is within you. Because you're not God. You are, to some degree or other, an animal, but you have this special spark. You have this special ability. And so God is saying, I will help you understand what it means to be godlike. I will help you understand what it means to be creative. I will help you to understand how to use your creative power, how to use your ability of imagination. And I will help you to gradually use it in a rational way. But human beings didn't listen. We had this creative power. We had this desire to have more. We had this desire to find out hidden truths, to know how to interact with the environment. We had it. And it was too much for us. We couldn't contain our creative power. We couldn't contain our creativity. We couldn't contain our desire to have knowledge of good and evil. And we couldn't learn to use our human abilities and our unique human capacity in lockstep with how God wanted us to learn it. Instead, we went and we ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We asked questions we shouldn't have asked. And we rushed into things and we learned things we were not yet ready to know. And we experienced things we were not yet ready to experience. And this gift that was given to us as human beings, this ability to do things that no other species had ever done before, this ability to reinvent, this uniquely human creative power, this being in the image of God, this spark of godliness, this creative ability that human beings have. It was a gift, but it was a gift that became a curse. And it led to us cutting ourselves off from the very God that gave it to us. We have spent 5,000, 6,000 years reinventing our relationship with nature, striving to a higher plane of existence, building bigger towers, advancing human technology, all while we strive to get back to where we once were. We strive to get back to not being at odds and not being separated from the beautiful force of power that created us. And as we've gotten better, we've also become more aware of the pain of not having what we should have, not having that connection with the force, the power that created us. Frankenstein. You ever read Frankenstein? It's a great book, famous book, written by Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley's mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, was a very famous advocate for the rights of women. Mary Shelley was married to an amazing poet called Shelley, the poet Shelley. And Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, the daughter of a great feminist, the wife of an amazing revolutionary poet, she wrote a novel that is considered to be the first science fiction novel in the history of the world. You ever heard of it? It's called Frankenstein. And the novel Frankenstein tells the story of a scientist who goes and does something that has never been done before. He makes a human being. He creates his own human being. He digs up a bunch of body parts, and he digs up a brain, and he digs up an arm, and he sews them all together, and he hooks them up to electricity, and he waits for a big thunderstorm, and he makes a human being all of his own. He makes a man. But this man that he creates, he never provides for it. Doesn't give it a place in the world, doesn't provide it with anything that it needs. And it becomes a monster that horrifies the world. And so he spends years trying to track down his creation. And the point of the novel is exactly the same point that's being made in the story of the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve. That with our creative power as human beings and with our unique human innovation, if we don't have truth and we don't have goodness and we don't have love, it doesn't mean anything. Dr. Frankenstein is so caught up in the fact that he made a man, he created a person. He forgets that if you bring a life into this world, you have to give it love. You have to give it something. You can't just create. With creation comes responsibility. Of course, Mary Shelley's novel was an analogy for capitalism. Out of feudalism had come capitalism, and human beings were harnessing electricity, lightning, the power of electricity, and human beings were inventing new things, but they were losing their souls. They lost their souls. They were working children to death in sweatshops. They were colonizing the native people of the Americas and Africa and Asia and brutally treating people. They were so caught up in, look how creative we are. Look how we can build. Look how we can invent. We're so great. We're so amazing. We can invent. They lost track of any moral sense, any sense that they had an obligation to their fellow human beings. They had an obligation to care for people. They had an obligation to make sure people were provided for. That in their enthusiasm with human progress, they became increasingly cold and indifferent to the suffering of others. And they increasingly became cut off from the love and the beauty that created them and gave them that very creative power to begin with. She's pointing to the tragedy of the human race. What Mary Shelley is pointing to has come back with a vengeance. Because we've gotten better at inventing things than ever. They look at Chat GPT. It can do anything. Practically anything. 3D printers, self-driving cars. There's so many examples I could give. Machines, human beings, our creative power is everywhere. The creative power of human beings is on full display before the world. But that creative power is without love. That creative power is without guidance. That creative power is without any central vision or any feeling of obligation to other human beings. It's a cold creativeness. It's an unloved creativeness. It's a hateful and lost creativeness. That's where we are as human beings. You want an example of this? Check out the logo of the Apple Corporation. When I was in the Middle East, I was hanging out with some Muslims. They told me they believe that logo, the apple with the, the bite out of it, they believe that logo is satanic. They believe that Apple is a satanic corporation. It's celebrating the fall of man. That's what it is. However, if you read, there are different theories about the logo. There's actually an even more sinister theory about the logo of the Apple Corporation. And that theory is this. Apparently, Steve Jobs, the great computer technology guy who went ahead and developed Apple, he was a big fan of Alan Turing. Now, if you've ever seen the movie The Imitation Game, it's about Alan Turing. Alan Turing was a very, very disabled but very genius mathematician in Britain during World War II. The British government utilized him to build their decoder machine. And Alan Turing was a computer mathematics genius. He invented a decoding machine, and that decoding machine is considered one of the key breakthroughs that laid the basis for the modern computer revolution. The Alan Turing decoder machine. And that Alan Turing decoder machine he invented laid the basis for what Apple and Microsoft and many corporations later did. Steve Jobs of Apple spent a lot of time reading Alan Turing's work. We know this. But Alan Turing committed suicide. Alan Turing was gay. It was illegal to be gay in Britain. And it was illegal to be gay. And so Alan Turing was caught engaging in homosexual behavior, was arrested for it. And he was told he had the choice of either going to prison or taking drugs that would cut off his sex drive. And so he began taking the drugs that cut off his sex drive. He felt a huge amount of shame, being humiliated before the world for being gay. He also felt very degraded having to take these pills that would cut off his sex drive. So Alan Turing committed suicide. And the way that Alan Turing committed suicide was he dipped an apple into cyanide, poisonous chemical, and took a bite out of it. And it is widely believed that the logo of the Apple Corporation is some bizarre, demented joke about the suicide of Alan Turing. Look it up. I did not think of this. This is widely believed on the internet by people that have studied the life of Steve Jobs. There are many people that believe that the logo of the Apple Corporation is some kind of weird, demented inside joke about how Alan Turing committed suicide. That's gross. That's weird. And it's uncomfortable. Why in the world would you make that the logo of your computer company? There's a kind of indifference to the suffering that Alan Turing went through, kind of an indifference to the humiliation and the tragic end of such a great mathematician. The whole thing has a weird, it's the kind of thing you look at and you're like, something's off about this. They're like, so the guy who developed a lot of the computer technology you use killed himself with an apple, so the logo is an apple. Ha. Yeah, we're all laughing here, Steve. I don't think we think it's funny. We don't get the joke here. Can you explain to us why that's funny? We're not laughing here, Steve. We're not laughing, Steve. I mean, we don't really find this to be a humorous thing. It's not funny. It's kind of gross, kind of sad, kind of ugh. It's just the kind of thing. It's like, what kind of person would do that? That kind of tells you about the kind of people that are running the world we live in. It's the kind of people that maybe they've tapped into that creative power of human beings. Maybe they're really good at math and science, computers, but they've completely cut themselves off from God. They've completely cut themselves off from morality. They've completely cut themselves off from love. They've completely cut themselves off from any feelings of empathy for their fellow human beings. Go and read about how many sociopaths and psychopaths there are on Wall Street. Stacey Abrams, a Democrat. Paul Ryan, a Republican. Both of them say that Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged was a great source of inspiration in their life. Ayn Rand, in her book Atlas Shrugged, there's a whole speech about how money is the source of all good. Money is the source of all good. About how people should be completely indifferent to other people, completely altruistic, completely rejecting any form of altruism. This is evil stuff. When the world is ruled by the law of the jungle, when there is no rules other than might is right and the strongest survive, the kind of people who get to the top are the most ruthless, the most cruel, the most indifferent to others. Those are the kind of people that rise to the top in a world where there is no order, in a world where there is utter chaos, in a world where there is no right and wrong. The kind of people who rise to the top in that kind of setting are the most dangerous. The most dangerous people rise to the top. And that's the world we live in. We live in a world where we're increasingly being told that right and wrong doesn't exist. We're increasingly being told that morality is a scam and a hustle. We're increasingly being told, don't be a sucker. Don't care about other people. Don't have compassion. Don't have kindness. Don't help your fellow human beings. Don't think there's a better world coming. Don't think that there's something better coming. Don't believe that tomorrow can be better than today. Just wallow in pessimism. Just become hopeless. Just fry your brain on psychedelics if you're feeling bad about it. Just wallow in hopelessness. That's what our leaders are offering us. Just wallow in pessimism and hopelessness. Just be degrown to save the planet, to bring the world back into balance, to reduce consumption. That's what they're offering us. That's what they're offering us. And that's why we just keep chugging along and chugging along and chugging along. And they shoot at us and they shoot at us and they attack us and they attack us. And we just keep chugging along and we just keep chugging along and we keep growing and we keep doing what we're doing. And I keep coming back on here with a smile on my face. Why? Because they need us. The world needs us. The world increasingly needs what the Center for Political Innovation has to offer. It completely needs the city building tendency. It needs what we have to offer. And we just keep chugging along and chugging along and chugging along because we're filling a void. There's so many people that are longing for what it is that we do here. There's so many people who wish they could find something like what we do here, what we do at our conferences, what we do in our organization. There's so many people that are just wishing there could be something to live for. There could be something to believe in. There could be some solid ground to stand on. So many people are longing for this. So many people are longing for what we have, and that's why we just keep chugging along and just keep chugging along, and people come and people join and people want what we have, and no one else is offering it. You'd think it'd be common sense, but it ain't. I've referenced many times a news item that happened in early February. It was all over conservative right-wing media. Ben Shapiro talked about it. Tucker Carlson talked about it. But it got very little play in mainstream media. No one paid attention. And that was this. A small town called Asbury, Kentucky. There was a Christian revival service, a prayer service. It still hasn't ended. It's still going, last I checked. But the Asbury revival, this was a Christian prayer revival in a small town in Kentucky, and it just kept going. It's still going. It's still happening. They haven't stopped. They're still there in the auditorium of this small Christian college in this little town in Kentucky, and they're still praying. One weekend, there were 50,000 people there. 50,000 people from across the Midwest and the Rust Belt and Appalachia. 50,000 people piled in there. It's still going. Why? These are 19-year-olds. These are 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds. And they're there 24/7. The music is going. The praying is happening. The crying is happening. The tears are flowing. And the music is playing. What is going on? What is going on? Why is this happening? I'll tell you why it's happening. It's happening because everything in the country is falling apart. It's happening because the train's derailed, been going off the tracks and leaking deadly chemicals. It's happening because they don't have good paying jobs. It's happening because the roads are falling apart. It's happening because we're transitioning into a low-wage police state. And there's so many people who are lost and so many people who are hopeless. And they're gathering in this auditorium. They're saying, God, I'm thinking about the relatives in my family who've died from opioids. Thinking about my cousin who's in jail. God, I'm thinking about how anxious I am and worried I am about paying off my student debt. God, I'm worried that I'll never be able to have a family. I'll never be able to get married and have kids. God, I'm worried. I'm worried about my community. I'm worried about my relative who's in the military. I'm worried they're going to send him over to Afghanistan again, or some African country, or to Ukraine to get shot. They're saying, God, everything in this country is falling apart and we don't know what to believe. They lied to us about January 6th, and they lied to us about the vaccine. They lied to us about Russia. They lie, and they just keep lying to us. We don't know what to believe anymore, and we're afraid. And God, do you hear me? Do you hear me? Does someone hear me? I'm crying out in pain because I want to know that someone's listening. Does anyone hear me? Well, God hears them. But we also hear them. We hear you. We, the Center for Political Innovation, we hear you. We hear your cries. You are not forgotten. And the government of this country may have left you behind. And the Wall Street monopolists may have left you behind. And the rich and the powerful may have left you behind. But we hear you, and we have an answer. Because in this dying wreck of an empire, amid all the hopelessness and decay and evil all around us, there is an explosion coming. The working people of this country will rise like a mighty storm, like a hurricane, a force so swift and explosive that no force can hold it back. And they will assert the desire of humanity to rise and stand. And they will join arm in arm with Russia and China and Venezuela and Iran. And they will demand the building of high-speed railway. They will demand the right to an education, the right to jobs, the right to health care, and the right to a good life. They will rise like a mighty storm, and no force will be capable of holding them back. And they will beat their swords into plowshares. And they will embrace their fellow man as brothers. And they will reject the forces of greed and evil that have gripped power in the Western world and are leading us off the cliff. And humanity, with its creative power, with its unique ability to reinvent the way it interacts with its environment, humanity will not be restrained. And the creative, independent, honest power of human beings will reconnect with the spiritual truths and the humanity and the compassion and the love that is within all of us. And the Alpha and the Omega, the last and the first, the beginning and the end will reunify. And there will be a restoration in this land. And it won't just be some magical thing that comes from heaven. It won't be an angel with a flaming sword. It won't be a meteorite from outer space. It will come because material forces will enable it to come. It will come because humanity demands it. It will come because there is no alternative. It will come because human beings cannot be contained. It will come because it will be apparent that we have no other choice. It will come because this is the way the world is moving. And I think it won't look like leftist revolutions have happened before in the past. I'll just tell you that much. You know, in the past, during the 19th and 20th century, leftist revolutions often had an explosive libidinal character. You know, in a feudal society, everyone's very restrained. Everyone knows their place. You know, the serf has one place. He can't even look a noble in the eye. You know, there's all kinds of, you know, ritual and hierarchy, and people are very constrained and restrained. That's how feudal society is. When you're overthrowing feudalism, the way you generally create the energy to overthrow feudalism is you lift those restraints. That's what you do, right? The French Revolution was a big explosion of sex and violence, right? They went to the peasantry and they said, cast off your chains. And the rage of the peasants exploded. The sexual desires of people exploded. Marquis de Sade. And the way that revolutions happened in the 19th and 20th century was that social constraints and restrictions on people were lifted. And that people who were angry, their rage, their desire for vengeance was unleashed. People that had been restrained and lived very controlled, regulated lives suddenly were given permission to let their impulses be released. And that's how revolutions tended to happen in the 20th and 19th and 20th century, mainly when feudalism was being overthrown and replaced by capitalism. The way to overthrow feudalism involves the lifting of restraints, right? And that's the way that revolutions happen. That's the way the French Revolution happened. That's the way the 1848 wave of revolutions happened. That's the way the revolutions, the Cultural Revolution in China was a lot like that. That's generally how revolutions have happened in the 19th and 20th century. But what we saw over the course of the Cold War was that the ruling class hijacked this mechanism. No longer do communists go around lifting restraints on people, giving people permission to unleash their rage, stirring up chaos to destroy traditional feudal societies. Communists don't do that no more. Now the Western capitalists do it. Now Facebook does it. Now Twitter does it. Now George Soros does it. Now this is a mechanism. The impulse to revolt is now a mechanism used by the Western power structure to get its way and stir up chaos and instability around the world. They don't like Russia. What they do is they get a bunch of bots and trolls and Twitter and all of that and tell people in Russia, unleash your rage. Are you mad about this? Are you mad about that? Rah, rah. And then they stir up instability and chaos. That's how the Western capitalists dominate the world. Look what they did to Libya. Libya was a country, a socialist country that was developing. There were problems there, and they stirred up instability and chaos, and now Libya is bombed into shreds, right? They did a similar thing in Syria, and this is how they operate. The emotions and aesthetic of revolution that were the emotions and aesthetics of revolution in the 20th century have now been hijacked by Western capitalism. And that is why things have gotten so confusing, right? And that's why it's so weird. We're seeing our leaders, the leaders of the Western capitalist imperialist system, they're the ones going all around talking about systemic racism and talking about the rights of women and talking about LGBT stuff. There's a reason for this. The reason for this is that the impulse release, the drive to release one's impulses, the lust for vengeance, the lust to tear it down, these kind of libidinal teenage feelings, they've largely become the property of the ruling class. And that's just a reality of the situation. It's not right or wrong, right? I mean, people have a right to be angry when they're oppressed. People have a right to be who they are and not be restrained. I'm not saying that these feelings are always bad or can't serve a good purpose. You know, being a rebel when you're a teenager is very, very important. It serves a function. And that's not the point. The point isn't to moralize this or make this good or bad. The point is The point is that we are in a time where the libidinal drive to tear it down, burn it down, and release one's impulses no longer plays a revolutionary role. And in fact, the forces that have basically cornered the market on it are the most sinister counter-revolutionary forces. That just forces us to go back to the drawing board and say, what can we offer? What can we offer? We can offer stability. We can offer stability. That's what we can offer. We can offer the way out. That was actually the name of the Communist Party. I have it right here. The Communist Party USA, 1940. They ran a presidential campaign. The country was having a Great Depression. It was getting ready for World War II. What did they call the book? What was Earl Browder's campaign slogan? The way out. The way out. It's basically capitalism is moving toward a new world war. Capitalism is causing instability and chaos. We offer the way out. I think William Z. Foster first said the revolutionary way out of the crisis. And then later they just kind of made it concise and they made it the way out. We offer the way out. The way out of the danger of war, the way out of economic instability and chaos, the way out of suffering and hopelessness. We offer the way out. With our program, our 4-point program, and with the kind of economic development that we're seeing rising in Eurasia, there is clearly a way out. We offer that way out. We offer that way out. And we have to start repositioning leftism to not be a call for chaos, not be a call for instability, not be a call for rebellion, but rather a very well put together, calculated, clear message and disciplined movement offering the road to order, the way out of the chaos, the way out of the nightmare that's being created all around us. We have to offer the road to stability, the road to things getting done. That's what we offer. That's what we offer. The way out. The way out of the chaos. And that leads me to a point that I want to make here that, it's not an easy point to make. It's not an easy point to make. And the reason it's not an easy point to make is because it's not an easy thing to learn. I think it's hard for young men. I think women get this better than men. Women are better than men in so many ways. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Women are better at getting along with other people. Women are much more sensitive to other people's needs. Women know how to maintain groups better than men do. We men, we want to get on here and talk about all the books we've read. We want to wave our dicks around and show everyone how smart we are. And, women know how to care for people. Women know how to listen to other people. Women know how to hold a group together. Women know when there's a job that needs to be done, how to get it done. And we men, we don't always have that. Now, some men are better than other men at this, and some women are obviously not as good as other women are, right? I mean, I'm speaking in broad generalizations here. I mean, this is all just because we're socialized differently, right? I mean, men and women are socialized differently. There's different expectations. But at the end of the day, I mean, When you're building an actual organization, women are very, very valuable because women are way better at it than men are. I mean, it's just a fact. Women are way better organizers than men are. They just are. There's no other way to say it. Women are better organizers than men. Men might be more motivated to give speeches and write articles and stuff like that. But women, when it comes to holding an organization together, making sure people feel respected, resolving disputes within an organization, bringing people together, listening. I mean, women just have better social skills than men. Okay. That's my experience. Women are more humble than men. Women are more patient than men. Women are more sensitive than men. Women are more, more observant. They just are, right? A lot of ways women are better than men when it comes to building community, when it comes to building organizations. A lot of us men, we're just stuck. We're having a rivalry with all the other men. We're trying to prove how much we know. We get caught up in this ego thing, this defensive male, I don't know what you want to call it. We get caught up in it. All right. We just do. That's just how it is. We get caught up in these things. And because of that, there's room for us to do better. And we can learn. Right. Women have their struggles too. There's a lot of women who struggle with confidence, for example, and so, I mean, it's not like anyone's better really than anyone else, but when it comes to certain things that are very valuable in building an organization, women are just better than men. They're better organizers than men. I mean, I'm just being honest. Women are better organizers than men. But that brings me to a point that really needs to be made. Because one of the problems with young men and I don't want to say this the wrong way because I've been there and I know what it's about, right? I almost want to say, oh, men are arrogant or men are too proud. That's not what it is. That is not what it is. It's the opposite. A lot of men feel they have something to prove. A lot of men feel like they're on trial. They feel like they're on trial. They just have to prove that they're good enough. They have to show that they know. They have to show that they're capable. And they're so afraid that if they don't demonstrate to the world that they're worthy, if they don't show to the world how strong they are, that doesn't just mean physical strength. It also means intellectual ability, writing, speaking, intelligence, knowledge. If they don't show to the world that they have value, they don't demonstrate their capability, that they won't be valued. And they're so afraid. They're so afraid. And especially now that it's so hard for men to get jobs. I mean, the job market isn't what it is. And I mean, a lot of men really feel like they just have to show their ability. And that leads them to a place where they don't want to learn. They don't want to listen. They don't want to take guidance. Because if they do that, it's like admitting they need it. It's like admitting that they're not good enough. They feel they're in a place of terror. This fear that they won't be recognized. This fear that the world is going to look at them like they're a loser or a failure, or somebody who hasn't done something. This fear that they won't be able to prove what they can accomplish. This fear that they'll be unrecognized, and this fear that that people won't see them as having value, and that fear haunts them, and that fear gets in their way. It gets in the way of them having real, valuable relationships. It gets in the way of them learning from someone who could teach them something. It gets in the way of them getting the most out of very valuable experiences of being in a group. It's that fear. It's not arrogance. People misread it as arrogance. People misread it as pridefulness. People misread it as boastfulness or self-importance. That's not what it is. It's the opposite. It's that they don't have the love that every person deserves. They don't have the respect that every person deserves. They feel like they're on trial. They feel like they're being watched and tested at all times. They're afraid that if they don't do good enough, they won't be valued. It's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to be at all. It's a painful place to be. I hear them. And I've been in that place. Trust me. I've spent a lot of my life in those kind of circumstances. I got to tell you, if you're in those circumstances, I want to tell you that the best feeling in the world, best feeling in the world is when you can just get to the place in your mind and say, I don't have to prove myself. I don't have to stand out in the crowd. I can be beautiful just by being a part of this. I can be beautiful just by being a part of this. I can be beautiful by learning, not just by teaching. I can be beautiful by standing arm in arm with other people. And it takes courage. It takes such courage to do that because you're already in such a scared place. But when you can just have the real strength to lower your defenses, to let your guard down, and trust, and open your mind, and open your ears, and let your soul connect with other people. And you can realize that we don't want to judge you. We don't want to put you down. We want to help lift you up. We want to help lift you up, brother. But in order for us to help lift you up, you have to open your soul to it. You have to put your guard down, and you have to be willing. You have to be willing to open your arms and open your heart and say, I want to learn. You have to be willing to open your mind. You have to say, help me. Help teach me. Help cultivate me. Help me learn. Help me improve. Help me shine. You have to be willing to trust that other people aren't competing with you, that other people aren't trying to block you or put you down or make you less or denigrate you. You have to be willing to open up. You have to be willing to say, these folks just want to help me, and you have to trust. You have to trust. have to trust. And if you can do that, if you can find the courage to do what is not easy, the courage to say, maybe I don't know. I don't know. It takes a lot of courage to say you don't know. But to just say, you know what, I don't know the answer. But I want you to teach me the answer. And I want you to teach me the answer so that I can figure out how to give that answer even better than you just gave it to me now. I want you to help me polish myself, improve myself, and shine. I want you to help me. I want you to teach me, and I'm willing to put my guard down. I'm willing to be taught. And I'm willing to hear other people, and I'm willing to challenge myself, and I'm willing to be put into hard situations. I'm willing to trust. I'm willing to get into a car when I don't necessarily know where it's going, figuratively speaking. I'm willing to be led. I'm willing to take the burden of trying to be the king of the castle off my shoulders. And just say, I'm in somebody else's castle, but it's a safe place. It's a safe place. I don't have to have a war. I don't have to fight with these people. I don't have to fight them. I don't have to fight them. I can trust them. They want to help me. We want to help them. You can do that. You can get yourself to the place where you can just put your guard down and say, I am ready to learn, and I am ready to lead, and I am ready to make beautiful music in an orchestra where I'm just one instrument. You can do that. It's not easy, and it comes with time, and you can't fake do it. If you can get yourself to the place of saying, this is where I want to be. This is the trust that I want to have. I'm willing to be led. I'm willing to be one instrument in a beautiful orchestra. I'm willing to be part of this, and I don't have to prove myself because I'm not on trial every day. I'm not on trial every day. I don't have to prove myself. People love me just for being here. People love me just for being here and being part of this. People see me as special and important just because I'm here. Just because I've given myself to this, they already see me as valuable. If you can get to that place, you can get there. You're going to be so happy. You're going to be so happy if you can get to that place. It takes courage to get to that place. It also just takes time. It's like sticking your feet in the swimming pool. And at first it seems like it might be a little too cold, but you get in a little bit further. Pretty soon your whole body is in the swimming pool and you're swimming around. That's what it's like. I don't expect you to jump in head first, do a cannonball. But you can. You can if you want. Not everyone does it that way. I'm not going to throw you in the pool. I'm not going to pick you up against your will and toss you into the ocean. Not going to do that. Right? That would be illegal. That's a serious crime. You have to get into the swimming pool yourself. And if you want to get in 1 foot at a time, inch by inch, I understand because that's how I did it. That's how I did it. That's how I got into the pool. I didn't jump in. But when I got fully into the pool, it was such a better place to be. It was such a better place to be. I got fully into the pool. I'll tell you when I got fully into the pool. I got fully into the pool when I moved to New York City. When I moved to New York City, I was fully into the pool. My family was back in Ohio. And I'd been in this political group and I'd been struggling after college. I got the opportunity to come to New York for a month, and that month has turned into well over a decade. I've been here ever since. When I got to New York, it was hard. First month I was in New York, I was so overwhelmed. I didn't even know what was going to happen. There were times I just couldn't stand it, and I was just so overwhelmed, and this city was so fast-paced, and the political group was full of problems. But I got to this place where I said to myself, this is where I am. This is what I decided to do. This is where I am. I've given myself to this movement. I've given myself to communism. I've given myself to the revolutionary anti-imperialist movement. You know, despite all the flaws, despite all the frustrating people, despite all the setbacks, this is where I am. And I'm just going to try to get done the best I can do. At that point, a new level of peace came over me, a new level of certainty came over me, a new level of patience with people came over me, a new ability to make connections came over me. I was a better, happier person. Now, things don't change overnight, and it's a process. Nothing changes overnight. There's no dramatic moment. It's not like something happens and boom, whoosh, one day it's different. It's not like that. Not like that at all. But things got better. Things got better when I was able to just recognize that I had to just let my guard down. Just let my guard down and do what I can do and stop trying to prove myself and stop trying to fight a battle every day and stop seeing myself as being on trial every day. When I learned to just submit, when I learned that I could just follow the rules, when I learned that I could just, you know what, this is where I'm at. I'm going to try to do the best I can under these circumstances. My life got so much better. My life got so much better when I learned not to be at war with the rest of the world, not to view every circumstance as a trial. It's a place. And I'm telling you, if you want to get the most out of the work that the Center for Political Innovation does, if you want to really be able to work with your comrades, your brothers and sisters, you got to find a way to get closer to that place. Get to a place where you don't feel like you're on trial, where you can trust other people, and you can feel like you are part of something bigger. You can transcend the ego. I saw when you get to that place, it's a lot better. It's a lot better. It is a lot better if you can get to that place. I'll just tell you that much. So on that note, folks, I could go on about all of this all night long. But on that note, folks, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Let's do the roll call. Let's do the roll call because we've got a lot. We've got a lot to talk about. I got a lot of super chats to answer, and it's pretty late. It's almost midnight, but that's okay. Got plenty of things to talk about. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Who's with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. I will call you out as I see you. Names and locations. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. I see Fakio from Montreal. I see Rupert from England. I see Anthony in Detroit. I see Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Nate in Chicago. Saviero in Mexico. JT24 in Mississippi. KCMO in the USA. David Reniel in Hamilton, Ontario. Randall Wilson in Lexington, Kentucky. Carolyn and Dario from Brooklyn. Oklahoma Plains, Lauren Spencer. John McCarthy in Chicago. I'm about to show a video of John here in a minute. Kieran from San Diego. Ryan from Kansas City. Cincinnati, Ohio. Wow. Carl in Washington, Chris in Salt Lake City, Maddie in California, Wakanda, Heidi in Edinburgh, Scotland, Ventos from Wichita, Gabby is in Chi City, Bob Troy, New York, Moonlight Beach, California, Heidi in Edinburgh, Scotland, me from Canada, Echo Whiskey from Melbourne, Australia, Molly McGuire in Orange County. Orange, you glad you're in the county? Ba-dum-bum. All right. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you out as I see you. Names and locations. I see Briggy. Briggy is in Pennsylvania. Welcome, Briggy. Molly McGuire in the OC. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to have you all here. You all are doing great. You all are doing great. Gary Curtis is in Indiana. Gary Curtis. Jenny Lynn says, hey, SFT. Very, very good. Very, very good. Very, very good. Very, very good, folks. So glad that all of you are here. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notifications bell. Now, we got a few things. I didn't do beginning announcements because I just felt moved, and we got Nico in San Diego. So I wanted to a couple things. You all are probably aware, but I need to remind you that we are having our very, very important Center for Political Innovation National Conference. That is taking place. Our national conference is taking place. It is the Summit Against Hypocrisy, and it is taking place. Oh, we got Zachary Brunch in Richmond, Virginia. Welcome, Zachary. It is taking place. The Summit Against Hypocrisy is taking place on March 25th and 26th. It is in Washington, D.C., and it is going to be awesome. It is going to be downright kick-ass and awesome. Scott Ritter is going to be there. He's confirmed. We got Garland Nixon's going to be there. We got Nick Brana from the People's Party. He's confirmed. We got Jyoti Brar from the United Kingdom. We got Daniel Villa, the radio host, WBAI, New York City. We got Don DeBar from CPR Metro. He is going to be there. That is so awesome. I'm talking to some more prominent folks about coming. There's somebody I was supposed to talk to on the phone today, and but it looks like there may even be somebody else coming as well. I mean, this is really going to be a big show. There's going to be great music and speeches, and you really don't want to miss it, and you want to be there. And everyone who comes will get a free copy of my new book, Where is America Going? So you'll get your own copy of this book, complimentary. It's a free event. We'll probably ask you for a donation at the door, but it's not mandatory. So you don't even really have to pay anything to get in, So I hope that you're there. I really hope you're there because it's going to be an awesome, awesome event. I really hope you're there. And the Center for Political Innovation, we're marching ahead. There's all kinds of activities are being planned, and it's really, really exciting. It's really, really exciting. So I wanted to share that with all of you. If you want to sign up, you can sign up down below. We got the link in the chat. You can let me drop the link in the chat, right? Let me just drop the link here. Just because we want to have everything here, you can sign up below. The link is below. And if you can't make it, we're over budget at this point. We are way over budget. We're flying people in and, all kinds of stuff. So, and we got volunteers coming to town and all kinds of stuff is happening. So, if you can send us a donation to help us do it, that would be awesome. If you're not able to make it and you want to just shoot us a donation, that would make our lives a bit easier. If you did that. And if you can just come, that would be great as well. So we have the registration link. The registration link is right here. Here is the registration link. And Ryan beat me to it. Ryan Cotton already posted it. Here is the registration link. Here it is. Here it is. And then on top of that, if you want to just send us a donation, right? If you can't make it, or if you can make it, but you want to help the event go down, you want to help us get the resources together to do the best possible job we can with what we got. Here's the donation link, and donations are always appreciated. We could use some donations to help do the event. So, you can send us a donation. That would also be appreciated. Now, one other thing I just wanted to throw out there. Shout out to John McCarthy. John McCarthy did a very important thing this weekend, right? Because, we're all getting ready for this big conference, and there's going to be possibly a protest in California pretty soon. And, there's all kinds of things that are going on behind the scenes, right? We at CPI, it's like we're a small group of people. We're always doing stuff. But one case that we have worked really, really hard to highlight is the case of the FBI raid against the Uhuru movement. Chairman O'Malley and the African People's Socialist Party are being targeted by the government. So John McCarthy, who lives in Chicago, works full time. He spent the weekend. He drove to St. Louis, Missouri, to a solidarity conference that was convened by the African People's Socialist Party. And he represented the city, the Center for Political Innovation at that conference. It was us and Union del Barrio. We were the only two groups that had people there in person. There were other groups that sent video messages, but John McCarthy was there, and we had a representative all weekend. John McCarthy was there hanging out with the Uhuru movement, talking to them about fighting FBI repression and such. So he actually gave a statement of solidarity with the Uhuru movement at the conference. So we're going to watch that statement right now, and I'm going to post it later.
Political Innovation wishes to offer its full, unequivocal support to the Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party, and Chairman Omali Yeshitela in the face of FBI repression, threats of prosecution, bank harassment, financial suppression, intimidation, and other violations of civil liberties. The heroic anti-imperialist stance of the Uhuru movement, linking the struggle of the Black people of America with Russia and its resistance to imperialism and neoliberalism, is courageous. As the imperialists attempt to whitewash their image and present themselves as woke saviors of the planet and purveyors of human rights, the vicious campaign aimed at the Uhuru movement expresses their utter hypocrisy. The African People's Socialist Party has been advocating reparations and carrying out a program of Black liberation and anti-colonialism for decades. To characterize them as Russian agents or foreign conspirators is absurd and a step toward criminalizing all anti-war activities and dissent. It is urgent that all forces who oppose war, oppose FBI repression, stand for civil liberties and for the right to organize, raise their voices in support of the Uhuru movement. The Center for Political Innovation will not refrain from highlighting this case at every opportunity and pointing to the dangerous implications of how this group of Black revolutionaries is being targeted. We call on other forces to do the same.
Thank you to John, to the Center for Political Innovation, to Caleb Maupin, the author of the statement.
All right, that was tremendous, and that was great work. That was great work on the part of John McCarthy, and it is so important that we stand in solidarity with the Uhuru movement right now. What they are doing to them is setting all kinds of very dangerous precedents, very, very, very dangerous precedents. If they can arrest them, they can arrest anybody. Trying to claim that they're foreign agents because they call for reparations, because alleging that somebody in Russia gave them some money or something. On that basis, they could throw me in jail for my job at RT. They could shut down Sputnik Radio and throw Garland Nixon in jail. They can just arrest anybody. If they can do that to them, they can do it to anybody at this point, right? They're basically saying that a group of Black activists in America doing what they've done for the past 50 years is somehow a crime, is somehow being a foreign agent, somehow meddling in the American election system. That is so dangerous. That is so dangerous. And it's really important that we draw as much attention to this case as possible and we win justice for them. The way they terrorized these folks with drones and raided their homes and pointed guns in their faces. For what? For nothing. For nothing. They didn't do anything. They haven't even been charged with a crime because they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything except what they've been doing for the past 50 years, building businesses in the Black community, providing services to low-income African-American folks. So it is really, really important that we do everything we can to raise awareness. I'm really glad that John was there to read that solidarity statement. And, I'm really glad that the CPI was there and acknowledged that we are with them. We are with them 100%. There has not yet been a CPI conference that has not had a solidarity with Uhuru. The second they got raided, it was just before our Chicago conference, they got raided. And we immediately, I was on the phone. I said, send your people to our meeting. We're going to do everything we can to support you. And then on February 19th, we included them at our February 19th rally. And we will continue to raise from the heavens about how important it is to stop the criminalization and the attacks on Black revolutionary activists for supposedly being tied to Russia. So there you go. All right. So we got some super chat questions. Oh, another one right now. Now Regions Bank has put a former FBI agent in charge of their accounts and is calling in loans that are current to try and stop their progress. Wow. Bank harassment, right? Trying to prevent this organization of Black revolutionaries from being able to just do business, have normal business transactions. This shouldn't be allowed. This is criminal. This is just like how in Canada, Joe Biden didn't like the trucker movement. So he called up Justin Trudeau and said, "Oh, why don't you just start freezing all their bank accounts? You can't. This needs to be stopped. This needs to be stopped. We have to stand up to this. They're doing it, and they claim to be so woke. Oh, they're so woke. They're so revolutionary. Oh, and look what they're doing to a group of Black revolutionaries just for doing what they've always done." There you go. All right. So now the first super chat question I've got here is Mexico joining the Belt and Road Initiative. Does that risk sanctions from the U.S.? Well, you have to remember a lot of countries have joined the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB. A lot of countries have joined it, right? I mean, like France, Poland, Germany, a lot of countries have joined the AIIB. Now, Mexico, the United States very much considers Mexico to be its property. However, AMLO is increasingly an independent leader. So Mexico joining the BRI, I don't think that alone would result in sanctions. Now, them joining the BRICS, that would certainly have more consequences. And I'm sure the U.S. leaders aren't happy about it. I'm sure they're angry about Mexico joining the BRI, but I don't know if that in and of itself will trigger sanctions, but it may. I mean, they don't like AMLO. I mean, increasingly they refer to AMLO as a dictator. You're always a dictator if the United States doesn't like you, right? It's like an elected president. The second the Wall Street government doesn't like you, it's a dictatorship. And Modi in India, it's a dictator. Why? Why is he a dictator? I mean, he's elected, isn't he? It's like an AMLO, right? I mean, he clearly won the election. He won a couple other times and they rigged it against him. And because Trump alienated Mexico enough, he was able to actually win the third time and he became president. And, the forces that would have allied with the United States to stop him didn't because they were mad at Trump and he was able to finally get into office. It's like he's clearly the elected leader. He's clearly, got the consent of the governed, as they say, but it doesn't matter. If you disagree with the United States, you're a dictator, right? And if the United States likes you, when the king of Saudi Arabia died, when the Saudi king died, the guy who cut people's heads off and tortured people and was bombing the shit out of Yemen, when the king of Saudi Arabia died, they called him a wise and compassionate leader. That's what Ban Ki-moon of the UN called him, a wise and compassionate leader. There you go. He's just a wise and compassionate leader. If you're in Saudi Arabia and you're aligned with the United States and you torture people and you execute people, you're a wise and compassionate leader. But if you get on the United States' nerves, doesn't care how democratically elected you are, you're a dictator. So there you go. There you go. Thoughts on the banking collapses? Well, I have watched Richard Wolff's comments about the banking collapses. I've listened to Kim Iverson's comments about it. And, first it was the Silicon Valley Bank and now it's other banks. And I don't know what the implications are going to be. This is not good. This is really, really not good. And Look, when it really gets down to it, Glass-Steagall, commercial banking, banks that you use to store your money in, and Wall Street speculation should be separated. You shouldn't have to worry about your money in the bank being gambled away on Wall Street. Right? The bank that you invest in should be secure. Right? That's what Glass-Steagall was about. The idea was separating commercial banking from speculation. They shouldn't be gambling the market with your money. And it was under Bill Clinton that Glass-Steagall was finally completely gotten rid of. Now, it had been eroded and eroded and eroded, but under Bill Clinton, Glass-Steagall completely died. And it's not good. I mean, it's not good. And, Kim Iverson has been pointing out that it's going to be the lower, it's going to be the big Wall Street, the big Silicon Valley monopolies. They're going to win out here. And it's going to be tech startup companies that are going to lose all their money. I mean, it's a tragedy. I mean, and that's what happens when you have crises like this, is the big fish get bigger and the small fish go under. And yeah, I mean, I agree. Part of our 4-point plan is public ownership and control of the lending of money, right? Lending of money should be done by the state in the interest of an overall economic plan, not in the, by private for-profit institutions. I mean, I talked about, and this is rooted in the problem of overproduction. This is rooted in the tech layoffs that have been happening. There's a lot of factors that went into this. But, they're seeing a panic on Wall Street. They're all pulling their money out. Not good. Not good. All right. Have you heard of Richard Wurmbrand and non-Orthodox Christians persecuted in the USSR? Well, Christians were persecuted in the USSR, especially during before World War II and in the early 50s and 60s. This is a Romanian priest, and yes, I mean, there was heavy repression of Christians. Christianity was seen, the Russian Orthodox Church was the old state. Christianity was seen as the ideology of Western capitalism and being anti-communist. And that was wrong. I mean, that's all I can say is that it was wrong. I mean, the treatment of Christians in the former USSR and the way, and in China, there were awful things done during the Cultural Revolution. It was wrong. Now, things changed. In the 1980s, Billy Graham went to the Soviet Union. He said more people go to church in Moscow than there were at his church in North Carolina, and that Billy Graham, he went to the Soviet Union in the early 80s. He said they weren't persecuting Christians. He said that was in the past. And he was widely attacked for saying that, but he was just being honest. He was reporting what he saw, and, they improved, and they fixed things. Stalin legalized the Russian Orthodox Church during the Second World War. Yeah. And then in Khrushchev, there was a kind of a crackdown, but then, especially mid 60s, 70s and 80s, there was a lot of Christianity in the USSR. And, now the Russian Orthodox Church is a very big part of anti-imperialism in Russia. I mean, that's the Russian Orthodox Church is a really big part of what they call the new Russian patriotism. And a lot of those Russian Orthodox folks like Stalin. There are some churches in Russia. There's a divide, right? There's a lot of Russian Orthodox Christians who hate Stalin, but there's also a lot of Russian Orthodox Church Christians who think Stalin is a great defender of Russia and the fact that he brought the church back and that he was used by God to defeat the Nazis. So, there you go. This is interesting. Why is Marx called a Jew by friends rather than a baptized Lutheran? What do you think of Marx's union of the faithful with Christ? Okay. So there you go. All right. So there you go. What about Huey Newton's trip to China? That's the next super chat question. Well, Huey Newton was very much, he was a Maoist communist. Do I have it here? I have his autobiography. I used to have his autobiography. Do I have it here? He wrote an autobiography called here it is, Revolutionary Suicide. And in it, he talks about going to China. He talks about visiting China. I'll see. Maybe there's a part of it I could read here. It's been a while since I read this book. And the name Revolutionary Suicide, it's kind of a pessimistic name, and it is what it is. But yeah, the last chapter is called China, 348. What does he say about China? China. I'll just read it. Today, when I think of my experiences in the People's Republic of China, a country that overwhelmed me while I was there, they seem somehow distant and remote. Time erodes the immediacy of the trip, the memory begins to recede. But what is a common aftermath of travel and not too alarming? What is important is the effect that China and its society had on me, and the impression is unforgettable. While there, I achieved a psychological liberation I had never experienced before. It was not simply that I felt at home in China. The reaction was deeper than that. What I experienced was a sensation of freedom, as if a great weight had been lifted from my soul, and I was able to be myself without defense or pretense or a need for explanation. I felt absolutely free for the first time in my life, completely free among my fellow men. This experience of freedom had a profound effect on me, because it confirmed my belief that an oppressed people can be liberated if their leaders persevere in raising their consciousness and in struggling relentlessly against the oppressor. Because my trip was so brief and made and under great pressure, there were many places I was unable to visit and many experiences I had to forego. Yet there were lessons to be learned from even the most ordinary and commonplace questions. A question asked by a worker, the response of a school child, the attitude of a government official. These slight and seemingly unimportant events were enlightening, and they taught me much. For instance, the behavior of the police in China was a revelation to me, that they were there to protect and help the people and not oppress them. Their country was genuine. No division or suspicion exists between them and the citizens. This impressed me so much that when I returned to the United States and was met by the tactical squad at the San Francisco airport. They had been called out because nearly 1,000 people came to the airport to welcome us back. It was brought home to me over again that the police in our country are an occupying repressive force. I pointed out to a customs officer in San Francisco, a black man who was armed, explaining to him that I felt intimidated seeing all the guns around. I had just left a country, I told him, where the army and the police are not in opposition to the people, but they are servants of the people. I received the invitation to visit China shortly after my release from the penal colony in August of 1970. The Chinese were interested in the party's Marxist analysis and wanted to discuss it with us, as well as to show us the concrete application of theory in their society. I was eager to go and applied for my passport in late 1970, which was finally approved a few months later. However, I did not make the trip at that time because Bobby and Erica's trial in New Haven. Nonetheless, I wanted to see China very much, and when I learned that the President Nixon was going to visit the People's Republic of China in February of 1972, I decided to beat him to it. My wish was to deliver a message to the government of the People's Republic and the Communist Party, which would be delivered to Nixon when he made his visit. I made the trip in late September 1971, between my second and third trials, going without announcement or publicity because I was under an indictment. Even though I had no interest in travel restrictions and had been given a passport, the California criminal courts could have tied me down at any time because I was under bail. So I avoided the state's jurisdiction by going to New York instead of directly to Canada from California. Because of my uncertainty of the power structure might do, I continued to avoid publicity after reaching New York, since it was not implausible that the authorities might place a federal hold on me, claiming illegal flight. By flying from New York to Canada, I was able to avoid federal jurisdiction, and once in Canada, I caught a plane to Tokyo. Police agents knew of my intentions, and they followed me all the way right to the Chinese border. Two comrades, Elaine Brown and Robert Bay, went with me. I have no doubt that we were allowed to go only because the police believed we were not coming back. If they had known I intended to return, they probably would have done everything possible to prevent my trip. The Chinese government understood this, and while I was in China, they offered me political asylum. But I told them I had to return and that my struggle was in the United States of America. Going through immigration and customs services of the imperialist nations was the same dehumanizing experience we had come to expect as part of our daily life in the United States. In Canada, Tokyo, and Hong Kong, they took everything out of our bags and searched them completely. In Tokyo and Hong Kong, we were even subjected to a skin search. I thought that they had left that routine in the California penal colony, but I knew that the penitentiary is only one of the captivity within the larger prison of a racist society. When we arrived at the free territory where security is supposed to be so tight and everyone is suspect, the comrades with the red stars on their hat asked us for our passports. Seeing they were in order, they simply bowed and asked us if the luggage was ours. We said yes. They replied, "You have just passed customs." They did not open our bags when we arrived or when we left. As we crossed into China, the border guards held their automatic rifles in the air as a signal of welcome and well-wishing. The Chinese truly believe in the slogan, "Political power grows out of the barrel of a gun," and their behavior constantly reminds you of that. For the first time, I did not feel threatened by a uniformed person with a weapon. The soldiers were there to protect the citizenry. The Chinese were disappointed that we had only 10 days to spend with them and wanted us to stay longer, but I had to be back for the start of my third trial. Still, much was accomplished in the short time, traveling to various parts of the country, visiting factories, traveling to various schools and communes. Everywhere we went, large groups of people greeted us with applause, and we applauded them in return. It was beautiful. At every airport, thousands of people welcomed us, applauding and waving their little red books, carrying signs that read, "We support the Black Panther Party, down with U.S. imperialism," or "We support the American people, but the Nixon imperialist regime must be overthrown." We also visited as many embassies as possible. Sightseeing took second place to the Black Panther business and our desire to talk with our revolutionary brothers. So the Chinese arranged for us to meet with the ambassadors of various countries. The North Korean ambassador gave us a sumptuous dinner and showed us films of his country. We met with the ambassador of Tanzania, a fine comrade, as well as the delegations from North Vietnam and the Provisional Revolutionary Government of South Vietnam. We missed the Cuban and Albanian embassies because of our short time. When news of our trip reached the rest of the world, widespread attention focused on it, and the press was constantly after us to find out why we had come. They were wondering if we sought to spoil Nixon's visit since we were so thoroughly opposed to his reactionary regime. One evening, a Canadian reporter would not even leave my table despite my asking him several times. He insisted on hanging around, questioning us, even though we had made it plain we had nothing to say to him. I finally became so disgusted with his persistence and ordered him to leave. Seconds later, the Chinese comrades arrived with the police and asked him if he wanted to be arrested. I said, "No, I only want him to leave my table." And after that, we stayed in a protected villa with the Red Army Honored Guard. This was another strange sensation, to have the police on our side. We had been promised an opportunity to meet Chairman Mao, but the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party felt this would not be appropriate since I was not a head of state. But we did have 2 meetings with Premier Zhou Enlai. One of them lasted 2 hours and included a number of other foreign visitors. The other was a 6-hour private meeting with Premier Zhou and Comrade Zhang Qing, the wife of Chairman Mao. Not a nice person, by the way. That's a whole nother story. We discussed world affairs, oppressed people in general, and Black people in particular. On National Day, October 1st, we attended a large reception in the Great Hall of the People with Premier Zhou Enlai and comrades from Mozambique, North Korea, North Vietnam, and the Provisional Government of South Vietnam. Normally, Chairman Mao's appearance is the crowning event of this most important Chinese celebration, but this year, the chairman did not make a public appearance. When we entered the hall, a band was playing the Internationale, and we shared tables with the head of Beijing University, the head of the North Korean army, and Comrade Zhang Qing, Mao's wife. We felt it was a great privilege. Everything I saw in China demonstrated that the People's Republic is a free, liberated territory with a socialist government. The way is open for the people to gain their freedom and determine their own destiny. It was an amazing experience to see in practice a revolution that is going forward at such a rapid rate. To see a classless society in operation is unforgettable. Here, Marx's dictum, from each according to his abilities to each according to his needs, is in operation. But I did not go to China just to admire. I went to learn and also to criticize, since no society is perfect. There was little, however, to find fault with. The Chinese insist that you find something to criticize. They strongly believe in most searching self-examination, in criticism of others, and in turn of self. And they say, without criticism, the hinges on doors begin to squeak. It was very difficult to pay them compliments. Criticize us, they would say, because we are a backward country. And I always replied, no, you are an underdeveloped country. I did not have one criticism to make during the visit to a steel factory. This factory had thick black smoke pouring into the air. I told the Chinese that in the United States there is pollution because the factories are spoiling the air. In some places, the people can hardly breathe. If China continues to develop their industries rapidly, I said, without awareness of the consequences, they will make the air unfit to breathe. I talked with factory workers saying that a man is nature, but also in contradiction with nature. And because of these contradictions are the ruling principle of the universe. Therefore, they were trying to raise their levels of living. They might also negate the progress if they failed to handle that contradiction in a rational way. I explained that man opposes nature, but man is also the internal contradiction of nature. Therefore, while he is trying to reverse the struggle of opposites based upon unity, he might also eliminate himself. They understood this, and they said they are seeking to remedy this problem. My experiences in China reinforced my understanding of the revolutionary process and my belief in the necessity of making a concrete analysis of concrete conditions. The Chinese, speaking with great pride about their history and their revolution, and mention often the invincible thoughts of Chairman Mao Zedong. They will tell you this was our revolution based on concrete analysis of concrete conditions, and we cannot direct you, only give you the principles. It is up to you to make the correct creative application. It was a strange yet exhilarating experience to have traveled thousands of miles across the continents to hear their words. For the first time, what Bobby Seale and I had concluded on our discussions 5 years earlier in Oakland as we explored ways to survive the abuses of the capitalist system in the Black communities of America. Theory was not enough, we had said. We knew we had to act to bring change. Without fully realizing it, then we were following Mao's belief that if you want to know the theory and methods of the revolution, you must take part in the revolution. All genuine knowledge originates in direct experience. And that is, I just read you the whole chapter about Huey Newton's trip to China. Somebody asked about it. I thought, it's a short chapter in the book. Why don't I just read you the whole damn thing? So I did. There you go. There you go. There you go. Next question. And it's the last one I've got here. If anyone has any more questions, by all means, shoot them my way. If not, we'll probably wrap up after the... Oh, here's another one. Are you familiar with Bald and Bankrupt? His travel channel based in the former USSR offers great insight, the Soviet legacy of Soviet socialism. I have not heard of this channel. I'll have to check it out. Thanks for the super chat. Much appreciated. The next question I've got here is, why was Marx called a Jew by friends rather than a baptized Christian Lutheran? That would be because for a couple reasons. Number one, I'm being Jewish can be an ethnicity also, right? It's it can also be an ethnicity, not just a religion. I mean, that's just look at the history of Judaism, what it means to be a Jew. There is the Jewish organized religion, but there's also, it can be just like an ethnicity, right? Like being Irish or being Italian or something like that. And the other thing is that when Karl Marx's father converted and baptized the family to Lutheranism, that was probably not sincere, because Karl Marx's father was forced to do that in order to get a government job. Germany had a Lutheran government at that time, and in order for his father to have that job, he had to convert. Many people have noted that Karl Marx's writing style is very Talmudic. He writes in the Talmudic polemical style, so it's very likely that Judaism was practiced in Marx's household even after the family forcibly converted at the age of 14. So there you go. But also back then, ethnicity was a big thing, right? I mean, people were, we know about the history of anti-Semitism, et cetera. So there you go. There's no anti-imperialist organization in New Zealand. One person turned up to an anti-war event. Millions sent to Ukraine. Old man yells at clouds. So advice? I think there are anti-imperialist organizations, Jane. There are a lot of people in New Zealand that are sympathetic to China. And I know that to be a fact. You have to connect with them. I will make a point, Jane, of trying to point you toward such people. But there are a number of people in New Zealand who are pro-China, who are anti-imperialist. Maybe they're not as visible. I know that the freedom of speech is not, what it is in the United States. And that, I know, especially in light of that horrendous shooting that you all had, people have to be careful. But I know for a fact that there are people in New Zealand that are pro-China, that are anti-imperialist. So there you go. Have you ever looked into the case of Daniel Edmund Duggan? If not, please look into it. Well, let's Google that. Daniel Edmund Duggan. Ex-Marine pilot who renounced U.S. citizenship. Okay. I'll have to look into it. I don't know much about it. I'll have to look into it. All right. Very good. All right, folks. It's been fun. I got passionate tonight. I wish I could do speeches like this every night, but sometimes you're in the mood. Sometimes the spirit moves you, as they say, and other times it doesn't. But I felt like tonight's opening remarks, I like giving speeches like that. It's very, it's the kind of thing I'm on here to preach. So there you go. All right, folks. I'm going to pull up the closing music, and then we're out. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.